ladies and gentlemen. Bear with us, the acoustics in this room are not the greatest. So, if you'd be kind enough just to give us your attention. Welcome to tonight's meeting of the Committee of Adjustment. This meeting is to consider applications for minor variance and consent held under the authority of the Planning Act of Ontario. The role of the committee is to review the proposal that are before it, consider the evidence provided, and make a decision based on the 4 tests established by the Planning Act. In order to conduct an effective and efficient hearing, we have adopted the following process. Tonight's meeting will be live streamed and available for future viewing on the town's live stream page at oakville.ca/live. People attending this meeting are to be courteous and respectful of the members of the committee, town staff, and others in attendance. We ask that cellular devices be switched off or at least maintained on silent. All remarks and questions are to be directed to the chair. All persons wishing to address the committee are required to provide their name and address. A maximum of 5 minutes will be provided to all speakers. Any submissions beyond 5 minutes will be at the discretion of the chair. Any materials presented to the committee for viewing will remain the property of this committee. Persons seeking a deferral or withdrawal of an application will be invited to do so at the onset of the meeting. If a request for a deferral is granted, it is the responsibility of the applicant to contact the Secretary-Treasurer regarding the scheduling of any new hearing date. At the request of the committee, the applicant may be asked to provide a brief presentation, answer any questions that may arise. If the applicant has any concerns with the recommendations and proposed conditions found within the staff report, this is the time to advise the committee. All persons who wish to support or oppose the application will then be given an opportunity to speak to the committee. In the interest of efficiency, groups sharing the same view are asked to select a spokesperson, and individual speakers are asked to not cover the same points as those who have already spoken. The applicant will then be given an opportunity to respond to the comments made by any interested parties and answer any additional questions from the committee. Discussions will then be closed and the matter taken into committee for a decision. Once the committee has made an oral decision, any person desiring a written copy must file with the Secretary-Treasurer a written request for notice of this decision. A green sheet is provided on the table at the back of the room for this purpose, and only those filing such a request will be given any subsequent notice of any appeal. Notice of the committee's decision will be mailed to the applicant and anyone who filed a written request no later than 10 days following the decision of a minor variance and 15 days for consent. If you do not agree with the committee's decision, you may appeal the decision to the local planning appeal tribunal, and the last date to appeal will be noted on the decision. If no appeal is received within the prescribed time frame, the decision of the committee becomes final and binding, and the applicant and anyone who has received a copy of the decision will then be notified by written correspondence. Thank you. We have one regret this evening, Ms. Murray. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interests? I see none, thank you. At this time, I will be taking deferral requests or withdrawal requests. Is there anyone here who would like to withdraw their application or defer their application? Okay, I see none, thank you. Our first application for the evening is CAV 130 of 2019 at 562 Winegrove Crescent.
Good evening, committee members, Madam Chair. My name is Graham Barrett. I'm the agent for the owners of 562 Wingrove. I live at 1575 Dundas Street, Western Toronto.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Who is here for application CAV 130 of 2019 at 562 Winegrove Crescent? I see none. Okay, Mr. Barrett, this is a proposed second-story addition, and we do have the 4 letters of support that you've submitted. Go ahead, sir.
Okay, so I'm here to request 2 minor variances from the zoning bylaw in order to permit construction of a second-story addition, which will be within the footprint of the existing dwelling. We're also proposing a new front porch. Both variances are existing conditions. The garage is already there. We're unsure when it was originally built. The current owners purchased the home in 2013. This is the garage area here. It's a single-car garage with storage and a workshop in the back, which I've highlighted. This is all existing. The workshop is there for the owner's personal use. It's not used as a home business, nor is there any intention of ever using it as such. The variance is required to permit the continued existence of this 57 square meter garage, where the bylaw sets the max at 45 square meters. The southerly interior side yard of 0.82 meters is also an existing condition. Take a look at the site plan. This is where this side yard setback is located. The proposed addition will be completely within that footprint of the setback. So the setback won't be changing. Design elements such as a dormer in the front here have been incorporated so as to mitigate the effects of this variance and its impact on the streetscape. Got a couple photos where you can kind of see the actual conditions of what's there at the moment. Beyond that, I've already sent in letters of support. You're aware of those. Just think this addition is very much in character with some of the other newer homes on Wingrove. Get a few other examples of what has been done on this immediate street. As you can see, what we're proposing here is really not out of line with the existing homes on the street. I've read the staff report and I agree with their comments and their conclusions that this proposal passes the 4 tests. The owners have been very considerate of their neighbors. As you mentioned, we've submitted some support letters, including both adjacent, who stand to be most impacted by the variances. And otherwise, this is a fairly straightforward application, and the variances are, again, the result of existing conditions. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you have. Thanks for your time.
Very well, thank you. Are there any questions of Mr. Barrett at this time or items of clarification? I see none. Okay, we're ready for a motion. If you're satisfied, we can take this matter into committee. Okay, go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the application and the staff's report, also hearing the comments of the applicant this evening, noting that there were no letters of opposition. There were 4 letters in support of the application. I would like to move that the application be approved as applied for, finding that it does meet the test of the Planning Act and it's minor in nature and appropriate development for the neighborhood, with the following conditions: that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevations dated September 11th, 2019, and that the approval expire 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued.
Thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? The application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
The next item on our agenda is CAV 131 of 2019 at 145 Douglas Avenue. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee.
Your name and address for the record, please.
I'm Brian Gore of 54 Forsyth Street, representing the applicant.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gore. Who is here for application CAV 131 of 2019 at 145 Douglas Avenue? Can I see a show of hands for all those who are here for this application? Very well. Are you going to address the committee, I'm assuming? Correct.
Speaking to me, I'm here to see what happens to this application.
Okay, so if you decide that you would like to address the committee, just signal me with your hand. Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Gore. We'll hear your presentation for this new development, and then we'll give the neighbors a chance to address the committee.
I'm a general contractor who, with my business partner, have built 12 homes in Oakville over the past 14 years. We've been working since May on the plans for this site with the homeowners, Robin Ashwell and Brenda Sanderson. Robin has lived in the existing house at 145 Douglas since 1991. This is a corner lot, which, as you are probably aware, is very difficult to redevelop. Compounding the difficulty of redeveloping this lot is that this is an unusual site with a large swale in the southwest corner and a quarter circle driveway that goes off Douglas and connects to Randall. The house is located at the back of the lot. The driveway slopes downwards from both streets, with the lowest section about 4 feet below the road on Douglas. We've worked with town staff on the site topography concerning the swale and the catch basin. Town were not aware of the catch basin, as it was not identified on any of their plans, and the swale is not part of the town's stormwater management plan. We were informed that if we so wished, we could fill it in. We have chosen not to do this, but will use the contours of the area and maintain the catch basin. And I'm going to show the front elevation of the house. So the right-hand side of this is facing north. The swale is currently in the whole lot, but we will be filling in the northern side of it, but maintaining it on the southern side. So we've designed the house to fit into the swale and not fill it in completely. If we looked at a southern elevation, you will see the swale coming back up towards the backyard. So the swale is down at this front portion, and we've utilised that as part of the design. Okay. That is part of the package I think you've already received, has those pictures in them. The owners have commissioned a bungalow, and we've landed on this design after 4 or 5 iterations, predominantly because of the topography of the site. The planned bungalow is approximately 2,000 square foot of above grade living space and is within all the required setbacks for the zoning of RL3-0. In the words of Robin, the owner, we want to continue living in this area, which I've loved for the past 29 years. My previous wife and I bought the house as a small bungalow and gained space by building an extra half-story to achieve 1,800 square feet. During my previous wife's extended illness, stairs presented a major problem. Recognizing our approaching old age, we want a bungalow and slightly increased living space to 2,000 square feet, so we can live here as long as possible. After many compromises, we've finally achieved a custom design which will fulfill our needs and essentially meets all town requirements. We are not planning to build a modern 2-story monster home to the maximum height allowed, which would be out of character for the area, but are proposing the construction of a modest bungalow. The variances we are seeking to permit an uncovered access stair below grade in the front yard is before you because of the town definition of front yard. The basement stairs will be on the Randall side of the proposed structure, and vegetative screening will be planted on this side of the building. It is not, in fact, on the front side of the house. It's sort of down the side, but it's on a front-facing wall, which catches it in the definition of front yard. To permit a minimum front yard of 9.10 metres is before you because of the zoning requirement of only moving the house by 1 metre in the RL3-0 zone. To ensure that, and this is in place to ensure that variances must be brought to this forum and be reviewed. This will ensure that there is a process in place to make sure houses are not built with significant variations in setback. And the third before you is to permit a maximum lot coverage of 25.15% for a dwelling of 1 story. The actual proposed dwelling is 24.29%, and within this maximum allowable, the homeowner wishes to keep his garden shed that he built many years ago, and this contributes the additional 0.86%, putting us over the allowable maximum. As you are aware, town staff are in support of the variance believing that the application satisfies all 4 tests before the Planning Act, under the Planning Act, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gore. Are there any questions or items of clarification of Mr. Gore at this time? I see none. Okay. I will invite the neighbors to address the committee.
Good evening, all.
Good evening. Your names and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Julie Peacock, my husband Scott McNabb. We are the direct neighbors to the north of Robin and Brenda. We're assuming that you've already read our letter of concern with regards to drainage, impairment of light, loss of view, and market value impact. Just in a brief review, when the houses were built, that was a ravine, and we were built with a big picture window view of the ravine to the north of them. So these are our views from those windows. With the movement of the house from so far forward, so that it is directly in front of all those southern windows, we have a total loss of view, and we will instead be looking at the wall of a house, which wouldn't have been a problem had our house been built at the same time, and then we wouldn't have the majority of our windows facing in that direction. We have more windows in our house facing south to capture that sunlight and that kind of ravine view than we do facing forward to our backyard or to our side yard. Anyway, I want to preface all of this by saying we really like our neighbors, Robin and Brenda, as you right. We've always gotten along very well in a cooperative manner, and we're not contentious by nature, and neither are they. We wish them well. And we understand that Robin and Brenda have been working on these plans, for months. And we saw the plans for the house in the summer. And we think the plans are lovely, tasteful, in keeping with the neighborhood, all those, We understood at the time that they were planning to move the house footprint forward some, but however, we didn't realize just how far forward this was going to be in relation to ours until we got the drawings online about 10 days ago. So since that time, we've been scrambling to understand what these drawings mean. I mean, even to read them, we spent a morning at Town Hall trying to get a larger drawing so that we could read the fine print to understand their impact on our home and to understand what the process is and what our rights are. Yes. So here's our house right here, and Rob and Brenda are on the corner lot here. Their existing house is back here. Almost starts near the back of ours, as you can see, which is why we have this big window here overlooking this. But the proposed house is going to be moved there so that our big picture window will look onto a wall. Anyway, we talked with Rob and Brenda and Brian, their builder, yesterday, and they've suggested some measures that could be taken. Oh, our other point that we are so worried about was the drainage, because as they are keeping one half of the ravine, what they are calling a swale or a ravine, they are not keeping the half that is close to our house, and all the drainage from our neighbors and our property falls southward because the land slants that way and then tumbles down quite a bit onto Rob and Brenda's property. So we had this concern about drainage, and Brian, their builder, yesterday talked to us, and they suggested some measures that can be taken to assuage their fears regarding the drainage issue by putting a conduit under their driveway. But of course, you know, that was something we talked about yesterday, so we haven't seen any plans for this suggestion. And in the past, with the staggering of the houses, there was a lot of absorbable land all around both houses, so there would be no pooling should there be a heavy rainfall. Now both houses are side by side. So our other concerns, of course, were the impairment of light, the total loss of view, and the subsequent negative impact on our market value. You know, when we bought our house, we bought a house that was sort of drenched in southern sunlight and had leafy bower views no matter which window you looked from. We bought it for those sight lines. Naturally, you know, that house value is going to drop when those 9 windows are now shaded. So we're quite frankly just coming to terms with the fact that it's even permissible to fill that much of the ravine in to build. Naturally, we're devastated by the fact that they're planning to remove what we consider, you know, the most charming and unique feature of their property. But again, yesterday, Brian also demonstrated to us that it'll be possible to get some light through our windows at certain times of the year as it slants off the roof of their house. So there'll be a little bit of light coming in off the slant, but unfortunately that doesn't take away from the fact that 6 of our windows will be now in total darkness through the entire winter. And again, one of these windows is that 8-foot wide picture window, which currently, you know, has that featured view of the charming ravine-scape, as seen in those photos. Going forward, this window will be looking at a full-size house wall, you know, looking to the left. It's a big window. Looking to the left, looking to the right, or up or down, it'll be wall, except for the view straight into the window of their interior stairwell. According to the plans right now, they have a window on the side of their house, which our window will be looking into. But having mentioned that as well, I think for privacy purposes, obviously we don't want that, but I don't think Robin and Linda want that either, and that's something that we're still working with. And we're currently trying to look at solutions to make this change of view somewhat more palatable to us. So Rob suggested maybe no stairway window, and I think that would be better because right now we have what looks like a big picture frame view, and to have sort of a side windows view of interior stairs and into their house would be even more jarring. As regards to the truncated view, the only thing we can do there in order to make the existence of this window facing a wall seem a little less ridiculous, we have to think of creating an attractive focus directly in front of the wall, which makes sense. So we've discussed, again, all this has happened yesterday, we've discussed soft scaping and perhaps the installation of an architectural bower or a structure to support the growth of ivy or something that grows well in shade on their side of the fence. But we don't even know if that's possible.
I'm going to ask you to try and wrap it up because
Okay,
you're over the 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So
Anyway, we've had many things to consider in a very short time when we're concurrently have many other prior commitments. And we're currently brainstorming with our neighbors to find creative solutions so that we can maintain our goodwill and friendship that we value. But we're still in the process. We need more time. And as such, we're respectfully contesting the approval of the application.
very well. Thank you for your submission, Ms. Peacock and Mr. McNabb. Does anyone have any questions for Ms. Peacock or Mr. McNabb at this time? Okay, thank you. Mr. Gore, sir, did you still want to address the committee or you're okay? Because this will be your only chance. Okay, very well. Mr. Gore, this is your time to respond to all the concerns that the parties had. And while you're doing that, you spoke of the town not recognizing a catch basin that's on the property right now. So I'm assuming you're still going to go through the site plan process, and you're going
Oh, yeah,
to
we've
iron out
actually-
all the issues with drainage that
We've
the-
actually gone through site plan approval process already. We've had feedback. We've dealt with, and I'm going to address that as part of this.
Very
but
well.
we've got into it in big way.
So,
assure
yes,
me.
so that's one of the things you
Yeah.
want to highlight to your neighbors. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Okay. We have met, albeit yesterday, as Julie and Scott mentioned, and we spent quite a bit of time going through the different issues and trying to alleviate some of the concerns and ensure that we're not creating bad will between the neighbours and the owners. As an example, the owners were quite concerned about a very beautiful maple tree that's on their property. Part of the site plan approval process, we actually have to have an arborist on site during excavation to make sure that we don't damage any of the roots of that tree, and of course we've agreed to that, and we're going to be doing that. So the major concern raised by the neighbour is the plan to move the house forward on the lot. As identified by the staff, this will bring the house in line with the houses to the north and the south. This is the property in question. You can see how far back the house is on the lot. And actually I drove up and down the street today. This is the house with the furthest setback on the whole street. And the other houses do go backwards and forwards as you move along, but they're within the permitted variances that you're allowed for a front yard setback. This house would not be approved today with that type of setback. And again, my understanding is that the purpose of the zoning requirement of only moving the house by 1 metre in the RL3 area is to ensure that variances must be brought before this forum and be reviewed. This will ensure there is a process in place to make sure houses are not built with significant variations in setback. As I say, 145 Douglas is the only house on the street with such a significant setback. We did work with the neighbours, again, albeit yesterday, on the light on this particular window on the side of the house. I've actually taken some pictures from the other side, from the outside, and this is a picture of the tree in question. This is the beautiful maple tree that we will be preserving, but making sure we preserve. This is the tree in question. There's another view of it here. Unfortunately, that tree is going to be removed as part of the moving the house forward. The removal of that tree will in fact provide more light onto the south side of the house. Now, I had a real fun weekend working out site sunlight during various times of day and times of the year. We've calculated that the potential shadowing on the neighbour's house to the north of the new building, and we've shared these with them yesterday. And this diagram shows you sort of 4 points in the year: the summer solstice, middle of the year, 21st of June, the spring and fall equinox, that's this line, and then the winter solstice, 21st of December. This is roughly where their window is in relation to the house that we're looking at proposing to build. These houses are 4.5 meters apart, which is about 15 feet. The angle of the sun at summer solstice is 64 degrees, which means this area would be in shade and this would be in total sun. During the spring and fall equinox, this area will be in shade, this will be in total sun. And then during the winter solstice, as Julie did say, their window would be in shade. I have, however, done the calculation based on the peak of the roof, but if you actually look at the design, and if you look at the next chart, which I'll show you, which shows you, tries to show you where the sun is during those four times of the year: the spring, the summer, the fall, and the winter. The sun rises at 90 degrees east, and it rises at 7:20 in the spring. By 10:35, it's facing south, and by 13:25, which is over here, it's moved off. There would be partial shade on the window as the sun comes up over the roof, and then no shade whatsoever from 10:30 onwards at that time of the year. In the summer, the sun rises further back and it's higher. There will be no shade on that window all day long. Obviously, the fall we come back the other way. As I was doing this diagram, I actually hadn't realized the sun rises somewhere over here, about I've got the number somewhere here. By 9 o'clock, it's actually over here. It wouldn't be shaded. The window will be shaded, but by 10 o'clock, the sun's going to be here, and we're on the lower roof line. The sun will be going over a lower roof line, and there will actually be partial shading. This is the approximate location of their window in relation to the house. Does that make sense?
Yes, and you'll have to give all of that to the Secretary Treasurer for our records as well.
If anybody. Just keep one. I need those pictures, but there's a couple more.
Okay, are there any further questions of Mr. Gore, items of clarification?
I haven't finished, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I got lots.
We're keeping time. We have to be
I'm sorry,
fair.
have I still got time?
I-
Okay, the loss of view claim is valid. We're not disputing that they are going to lose their view. As I show on this diagram, you can see the position of their window in relationship to, so where they look out now from this window, they look out directly across the swale. They will be looking into the side of the garage and the stairwell window. We hadn't actually recognized that the stairwell window lined up with their dining room window, and we are prepared to modify that window during the building permit process if required. With this particular lot, we've been left with few options to build a new dwelling on this site. In our discussions with the neighbours, we've concluded that they'd only be really satisfied if the house had an unobstructed view out of that window. That would actually mean, yeah, that would actually mean moving the house back. Here's their dining room window. Here's where we're proposing the new house. That would actually mean moving the house back 7.9 metres, which, as you can see, puts us up against the backyard fence. And it actually moves the house further back than where it is now. Here's the current house. So that isn't really an option. We've actually worked through 4 or 5 iterations of the design as we've designed this house and worked on the placement of the house. We've had a basement garage off Randall, which we've not been able to do because we couldn't get the length of the driveway that's required. We've worked a basement garage off Douglas, but we couldn't get the setback from the corner. Remember, this is a corner lot here in the corner. We couldn't get the setback we required on that. The designer architect suggested a 1.5-story house, which we explored despite the homeowners not wanting that. That's not what they want. They're trying to get a bungalow. This wouldn't work either because the permitted loft coverage reduces down to 22%, and we would not be able to get everything into a bungalow or a master suite on the ground floor with that restriction. We've also explored orientating the house towards Randall, and again this doesn't work because we end up with the back of the house up against the fence into the neighbour's backyard, which isn't acceptable either. There have been many compromises from the homeowners along the way. Any movement of the planned building on the site causes major design issues and difficulty with the topography of this lot. It's my understanding that property owners are not automatically entitled to the view across their neighbour's property, but they can enjoy it while it's there. We have had dialogue with the neighbours and have agreed to work with them on plants and shrubs and retain as much of the existing foliage as possible that's in this area between the properties, and obviously working with them to soften the impact of this wall. The drainage issue we did touch on yesterday, as Julie said. What we would propose, because when you're developing a house, we've had the surveyor in, we've had the stormwater management engineer work done. He's come up with the swale that runs down here, but we're not allowed to go and do anything on their lot. If we work with them and we work with the engineer, we will do whatever's necessary to make sure there's a little small 4-inch retaining wall here that has the potential of backing water up behind it. We will work with them on doing whatever drainage is required and make sure that we can get it out, and even proposing putting drainage under the new driveway that we're putting here as part of ensuring that the water will get out of this area here. In conclusion, I must reaffirm that we are not planning to develop a modern 2-story monster home to the maximum allowable height. We proposed a modest bungalow of massing and scale that is compatible and maintains the character of the neighbourhood. The owners and I intend to work closely with Julie and Scott to ensure this change causes no damage to the maple tree on their property, does not impact their drainage, soften the impact of losing the view they have enjoyed, and that any disruption during construction of the new property will be minimal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gore. Any items of clarifications or questions at this time? I see none. Okay. We are familiar with your application. We've heard all the submissions, and it's now time to take the matter into committee. Who would like to move a motion? Go ahead, Mr. Tlowski. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'm going to move approval of this application with a rather long-winded explanation.
Go ahead.
I'll take each of the variances. For the matter of the stairs, it's very much a technical variance that the flankage yard is being interpreted as the front yard.
Would you mind speaking louder and into the microphone, please?
I will try. The acoustics are not good in here. Secondly, Madam Chair, the coverage is very minor, and I don't see any impact coming from that. Thirdly, the intent of the setback to be within 1 meter is, as the applicant has said, the intent is to have a consistent front yard of the houses, and when you take a strict interpretation of the bylaw, it actually works against the intent when you have an anomaly such as this, where you have a house so much further back. And the bylaw is intended, in my opinion, to align the houses the way the applicant's proposing to. Madam Chair, I can absolutely relate to the neighbors. When I built my house, we had an old bungalow beside us, put a very large window in my wife's studio. I now have a 2-story house 4 feet off the property line, and I've since frosted over the lower portion of that window. But having said that, there's a long case law history at LPAT, OMB, that there is no right to a view. With respect to drainage, this is not a regulated ravine, and matters of drainage will be dealt with through the development engineering site plan process. So, Madam Chair, with all those comments, again, I'm recommending approval, but I want to vary the conditions put in by staff in that both the applicant and the neighbor have talked about changes, potential changes to the plans. So I would make the approval conditional on the site development proceeding based on site plan and elevations to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning. I'd like to leave some room for the applicant and the neighbors to make some changes. So I wouldn't want to nail down the exact details, and that the building permit would issue within 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Talowski. Is there a discussion on this recommendation?
I'll just reiterate, I think what we're all feeling is that it's always great when the neighbors are talking and that they are moving forward together. That's what we like to see within the discussions that are presented before us, so I commend you for that. Having said that, the recommendation is to approve the application with said conditions. All those in support? Okay. The application has been approved. Thank you. Did you get the cell phone?
The next item on our agenda is CAV 132 2019 at 479 Brookside Drive.
Mr. Barrett, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. How you doing?
Good.
Okay, so yeah, once again, Graham Barrett, agent for the owners of 479 Brookside. I'm at 1575 Dundas Street West.
Very well. Who is here for application CAV 132 of 2019 at 479 Brookside Drive? Okay, I see none. We've done our site visits. We're familiar with the application. This is a new development of two-story dwelling with a slight increase in the RFA. Go ahead, sir.
Yep, as you mentioned, I'm here to request one minor variance to permit construction of this new detached single-family dwelling. We're requesting a residential floor area of 43.8%, where the bylaw sets the max at 41. This amounts to an increase of just under 20 square meters, or around 210 square feet on a four-bedroom house. The purpose is to provide additional space for the owners and their family. Also, the driveway is to be relocated from Ashbury to Brookside, and transportation is okay with this, so that's good news. 2 private trees will be removed to allow the construction of this home to take place, but 2 city trees and 1 neighboring tree will be protected, and we've had an arborist report done, and that's no problem. The owners have also been very considerate of their neighbors, and I have again submitted several letters of support. When this proposal originally landed on my desk, I had some concerns. There was a height variance and a greater floor area variance. They had a larger plan, clearly. I had several discussions with planning staff and worked with the designers and the owners to make some changes. The reductions helped to bring the plans into greater conformity with the zoning bylaw, and they did address staff's concerns as well. So I am in agreement with staff's assessment that the revised plans passed the 4 tests, have little to no impact on neighboring properties, and are similar in terms of massing and scale to other new developments in the immediate area, which I'm happy to show you some photos. That's our subject property. So this driveway will be moved to Brookside, and immediately on the street, there's quite a bit of new development that has gone on. There's larger 2-story homes. Again, I can do this for 10 more pages, but I won't bore you with the
That's
details.
okay. We're familiar with.
But it's a fairly minor variance. It really amounts to essentially enough space for an extra good-sized bedroom, and altering this design any further than we already have would compromise the vision these owners have for their home, and result in a reduction of the desired space and amenities that they have already made a compromise with. So I really don't have anything more to add other than that we believe the revision is now quite minor. It complies with all building envelope requirements, and that's about it.
Thank you, Mr. Barrett. Are there any questions or items of clarification at this time? I see none. Okay, if you're satisfied with town staff's recommendations, we are ready to take this matter into committee. Mr. Hardcastle, I see you reaching.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having undertaken my site visit, reviewed the materials, including the written staff report and the information provided by Mr. Barrett, I am satisfied that the requested variance conforms to the four tests of the Act. I would note that there were 5 letters of support provided in support of this as well. So I'll put forward a motion of approval subject to conditions. The first being that the dwelling be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated September 19th, 2019, and that the approval will expire within 2 years of the date of the decision if a permit has not been issued.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Great, thanks a lot. Have a good night.
You too. The next item on our agenda is CV 133 of 2019 at 1247 Cumnock Crescent. Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Sprossen with DQI. I live at 403 Englehart.
Good evening, Mr. Sparson. Who is here for application CV 133 of 2019 at 1247 Cumnock Crescent? Okay, are you in opposition or in support? Support. You're in support. So you are not...
They're the owners.
Oh, they're the owners, okay. Not that you don't matter, but
Yeah.
yes, you do.
But they're obviously
I'm
in
just looking for opposition and anyone who would like to address the committee. Okay, I see none. Very well. Mr. Sprossen, this is your time. This is the addition to for a two-story of 2 stories to the existing dwelling.
Right. I'm sure everybody's visited the site.
Yes.
And staff is in support.
Yes.
It's fairly minor. The interesting thing is that is the shape of the site, which you can't see the whole thing on here. It's sort of like a shark's fin that sticks up. But the reason for the one required variance is the depth of the unit. And the site, as you see, the front door actually faces the south, which is the bottom of the sheet. But zoning sees the front of the site as the east side, so on that side. So the reason for the depth being over is that the house is sort of sideways on the site. So it's really the front is, if it was the front of the site, then we wouldn't have this issue. The other variance is at the very back of the site, right here, which we're doing a covered porch. So the house was located in this position. It's actually been renovated a number of times. The last time by our company as well, about 17 years ago, and we did it on an existing building. And you see, I think you have this page. So the first one here, this is what was on the site, and we were working with that. So it was always located in that position with the front door facing south. And we did this addition, we took off part of it and did an addition like that. And this addition is keeping all the same and just adding a piece at the back there. So we think it's in keeping, and it's a progression from 1945 to today, and not trying to take down everything, mess up the site in any way. It's a beautifully landscaped site, and we like to keep as many trees as possible. So the addition is where it is, so it has the least impact on the front, and has the least impact on the grading and on the trees. So I think that's about it. It's 2 very minor pieces.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sprossen, does anyone have any questions or items of clarification at this time? I see none. If you're satisfied and you're with the recommendations of town staff, we're ready to take this matter into committee.
We're satisfied. Yeah.
Very well. Mr. Felipe? Mr. Flemington, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having conducted my site visit and having reviewed the application as well as the staff's report and listening to the comments of the applicant this evening, noting that there were no letters in opposition, and I would like to move a motion that these variances be approved as applied for, finding that they're minor in nature and they conform to the 4 tests of the Planning Act, with the following conditions: that the addition be built in general accordance with the submitted site plan and elevation drawings dated September 24th, 2019, and our standard condition that the approval expire 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well, thank you, Mr. Flemington. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Application has been approved.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
The next item on our agenda is CAV 134 of 2019 at 1404 Selkirk Avenue.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Joris Kieran. I'm with Kieran Design in Oakville, 11 Bronte Road, Suite 31. We recently moved.
Good evening, Mr. Kieran. Who is here for application CV 134 of 2019 at 1404 Selkirk Avenue? Okay, I see none. Go ahead, sir. Floor is yours. This is a new dwelling with a slightly increased RFA.
That's correct. I'm going to forego a full presentation unless any of the committee members want one. I'm here to answer any questions. It's a straightforward small increase to the residential floor area. Other than that, I'll answer questions if there are any.
Are there any items of clarification or questions of Mr. Kieran at this time? I see none, so it appears we're ready to take this matter into committee if you're satisfied with the recommendations of town staff.
I am, yes.
Okay, very well. Go ahead, Mr. Tlosky. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I'll move this application be approved as applied for, finding that it meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act. I believe this variance is minor. Mr. Kieran's done an excellent job of mitigating the extra size through the fenestration and the elevations. I'd note that there's no opposition from the neighborhood as well, and I'd make that approval subject to the site plan and elevations proceeding in accordance with the drawings dated September 27th and the building permit issue within 2 years.
Thank you, Mr. Tlosky. Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good night. Application CAV 101 of 2019 deferred from August the 27th at 307 Wedgwood Drive. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Jeff Roche, and I represent Grand Weiss Architect in this application.
Mr. Roche, I know it seems like no one is in the room, but I still have to do it for the video streaming. Who is here for application CEV 101 of 2019 at 307 Wedgwood Drive? Okay, I see none. You're not here for this application? No, I'm here for 205. Okay, very well. So go ahead, sir. The time is yours. This is for a 1-story addition and a garage.
Yes. I would actually, forego the presentation unless the committee members would like me to say something. I'm able to answer questions.
Very well. Are there any items of clarification from Mr. Roche or questions at this time concerning this application? I see none. We've done our site visits. We're familiar with the application, and we're happy that you're able to come back with a application that's supported by staff. If you're satisfied with the recommendations that town staff have on record, we would like to take the matter into committee.
Yes.
Okay, very well. Who would like to move a motion? Okay, Mr. Hardcastle, go ahead, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Having reviewed these materials, I think this is a very sensitive addition to an existing dwelling, maintaining the bungalow architecture and providing the additional garage space and living space in the way that it's been done. I'm quite satisfied that the approach has addressed any concerns that I've had with respect to this. So I'll put forward a motion of approval, finding that the requested variances conform to the 4 tests of the Act. I would note that there were no letters of support or opposition provided with respect to this matter, and the motion of approval should be subject to 2 conditions. The first being that the additions be constructed in general accordance with the site plan and elevations dated September 25th, 2019, and the second being our standard condition with respect to a 2-year expiration if a building permit has not been issued.
Thank you, Mr. Hardcastle. Is there discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Okay, the application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, lastly, application CAV 105 of 2019 at 205 Trafalgar Road, deferred from August the 27th.
This is also an application which I'll be representing as applicant.
Very well, thank you.
So
Mr.
again,
Roche, again,
yeah.
for the record. So, are you here in support or in opposition?
I'm clearing.
You're just here. So, once Mr. Roche is done, you can speak to the committee if you so choose, but just signal me. Okay. Okay. So this again was deferred. It's an addition to the existing dwelling, and it is under heritage. What's the word? Permit. Yes.
Yes, it went before Heritage actually this morning.
Very well.
So the Heritage Committee approved the
Okay.
application. So we have been working with staff diligently on this and with Heritage for some time. You know, again, I was not going to go into a presentation and all that. For, you would like the presentation? Or, all right. Well, the house is a heritage home, 1857, which, interestingly enough, I just found it was the same year that that Oakville went from a village to a town. So it's an older home, and we're proposing. It's not a large home. We're proposing to demolish I'm just trying to get my directions here. On Trafalgar, so it would be on there's the north side addition. Sorry.
Ma'am, I'm going to ask you to state your name and address for the record, so that we have it. And if there's any comments or remarks, please address the committee directly. Thank you.
So maybe I should start to just explain that the 2 variances we're going for, which are the maximum total floor area for the private garage. Private garage is here. Coach house, 2-story coach house garage. It's actually attached to the house by a breezeway, so it's not a detached garage as such. We're going for floor area of 46.69 square meters, whereas a private garage is allowed 45 square meters. So we're slightly over on the garage size, and that's largely due to the staircase, which is in the back side of the garage, which accesses the second story over the second story space over the garage. Otherwise, the garage itself is not very large, and would, aside from that stair, would easily meet the zoning bylaw. The second variance is for residential floor area. And we're asking for 40.9%, whereas this zone you are allowed 38%. So that represented, as I recall, something like 300 square feet or something of extra floor area. So those are two variances. I guess it's been back and forth with staff, and staff has agreed that the variances are minor and that they meet the 4 tests of the planning. And don't know what else. If you answer questions.
Okay, so if you just take a seat and we'll invite the neighbor to address the committee with any questions or concerns.
Mary Clark, and I live at 229 Trafalgar Road, which is north and west of the top of the block. I have lived there for 45 years, and I know 205 very, very well.
Very well. So did you have any questions or items of clarification that you would like answered?
Yes. Although this has been to heritage, how much of the original home is being, or if any, of the original home is being demolished? I know there were 2 extensions, not very old extensions, but relatively old extensions. And so I was querying that. And there is a huge pollarded oak tree in the driveway. It can be seen from the harbor when there are no leaves on the tree. And looking at this, it looks like the tree will have to go. And this has not been addressed to the best of my knowledge. And there are no views of the house, your proposed additions to the house, if I could see them. But the tree was a great concern. And if you could address that.
If you just speak into the microphone.
Yes, if you
Thank
could
you.
do that, to clarify.
Can you
this.
point out the tree you're from?
Yes, well,
This
it's,
one here.
no, that's Trafalgar Road. It is on Palmer and it's right here. Anyway. You know what the article is?
Oh, you mean the columnar?
Yes,
Yeah, I
yes.
did go by, I did see that, yes. That tree, I'm not sure that, it looks to me like it's being maintained, there's no reason that it can't be maintained.
Why?
Unless it's this one right in the driveway.
Yes, well, it's near the driveway.
It's near the driveway, I think it's one of these here on that side.
But if you have pictures, I can.
Yep. This is the tree, that's the tree
Yes.
here.
Mhm. It's just there.
Yeah, so it may be this tree here. Yep. So if in fact it's the tree in the middle of the driveway, yes, it would have to go.
And my comment is, I know your laws are different now. We used not to be able to cut down trees, and now I know you can cut down trees if you pay for the trees, or pay for the equivalent to be replaced. But I object to a very wonderful old tree coming down, if it's possible to keep it there, just to have a larger garage. I'm sure it'll be beautiful work you do. It's just that that should be taken into consideration.
So those are your 2 items, the the percentage of the original home that's being demolished, and
Yes,
you're concerned
yes.
for the tree.
And there's no drawings, to the best of my knowledge, of what they're actually doing, how much of the original home is going to be left.
Well, I can explain.
Very well.
Okay.
At this time, I'd like you to take a seat
Thank you
because
very
the
much.
procedural bylaws say that you have to finish addressing us, and then Mr.
Okay, thank you very
Roche.
much.
You're welcome. I know the small room lends itself to having a conversation and a dialogue, but we still have to remain within
And
our
we-
procedural bylaws.
And we went to Heritage LACAC, as it was called, in 1982, so we've done this ourselves.
Very well. Thank
We
you. I
didn't cut any
appreciate
trees
your
down.
submission.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, Mr. Roche.
So I just like the two additions, the later additions to the old heritage home, which would be coming down are obviously this portion and this portion with all the skylights. The major heritage home, which is this one, and the actual brick home, which faces Trafalgar, all of that is being maintained, so that's
The bulk of
the bulk of it. So I'd say that, I'm not sure what the age of these latter additions are, but they look to me to be, much, much later than the original 1857. The additions?
They're around 60.
Yeah, the additions are about 65 years old apparently.
Okay.
Okay. Like, I'd just like to say that there's been history with this file, obviously, for some time. I have not been on the file for, I'm taking over for Terry Martino in the office, who expected this, would go through. He's been working with staff for some time, and we've had heritage approval this morning, so, with respect to the trees, I did visit the site. I have seen that columnar oak tree. It is a beautiful oak tree. It's not that wide. It could easily fit, within the square in front of us. It's just very high. It's a nice columnar oak, but I don't know the history again with respect to discussions on that tree and the driveway where it's being placed for that garage, so I can't really comment further.
Okay. Are there any items of questions or clarification of Mr. Roche at this time? I see none. Okay. Thank you for both your submissions, and we're ready to take this matter into committee if you're satisfied with the conditions that town staff have. And thank you for letting us know that the heritage permit was approved, because that was one of the conditions that town staff had recommended. Who is ready to move a motion? Okay, go ahead, Mr. Flemington. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have conducted my site visit and have reviewed the application as well as the staff's report. Also hearing the comments. Here we go. Okay. Okay, sorry. And also having reviewed the application and the staff's report and hearing the comments of the applicant, as well as the neighbor from Trafalgar Road, who spoke to a couple of items that the applicant has answered their questions. Just with regards to the tree items, I know that there's the bylaws, the tree bylaws that the applicant would have to be aware of and build according to. So I am going to move. I also thank the applicant for making the changes to this application from when it was originally heard. So I'd like to move that the application be approved as applied for. Finding that it's minor in nature, meets the 4 tests of the Planning Act, and that there's the conditions that apply to it, which are the additions be constructed in general accordance with the final approved heritage permit to the satisfaction of the Director of Planning Services, and our standard condition that the approval expires 2 years from the date of the decision if a building permit has not been issued for the proposed construction.
Very well. Thank you, Mr. Farmington.
Is there a discussion on this recommendation? I see none. All those in support? Application has been approved. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have minutes to confirm from October the 8th. Who would like to confirm those minutes? Mr. Farmington, thank you. And a motion to adjourn? Mr. Hardcastle, adjournment at 8:11.